Um, so let's get it started. So thank you all for joining us this evening for the MoAD open mic. My name is Nia McAllister and I'm the Public Programs Manager at the Museum of the African Diaspora. And as we gather here tonight, it's essential to acknowledge the times that we're living in. MoAD stands in solidarity with Black Lives Matter as there are multiple pandemics killing us, including the ongoing systemic violence against Black people. We honor and mourn the senseless murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Tony McDade, Jonathan Price, Casey Goodson Jr., Patrick Warren Sr., and so many others who have lost their lives at the hands of police brutality and racial injustice, including those whose names we do not know. We want to acknowledge that unfortunately, as this list of names continues to grow, we will continue to say them and continue to bring awareness in the fight for real justice for the Black community. I also want to acknowledge the spaces that we're occupying. And though we're gathering virtually, many of us are settlers, immigrants, or descendants of those forcibly brought to this continent. And our institutions were founded upon the exclusions and erasures of the indigenous peoples whose lands we are located on. It is with deep respect that MoAD acknowledges that even in a virtual space, our people, our work, and our network servers are all on Native lands. And so we thank the indigenous peoples of the Bay Area and beyond who stewarded this land throughout the generations. So this open mic space is a gathering area for us to recognize all of our collective feelings, our grief, our anger, our exhaustion, but also to seek comfort and joy in each other's company. And everyone is welcome in this space, and it is of the utmost importance that we center respect and continue to create spaces that amplify Black voices. I'm very grateful that this series, this ongoing series, is really a space for all of us to share in our art and seek healing together. And so, as it's virtual, I do encourage you all to interact with the pieces that you hear tonight, support all of our readers and performers this evening. So please do use the chat, shout out words that stick with you, affirmations for our performers. You're welcome to use the reactions as well, air hands and claps and snaps. We just ask that you keep your microphones on mute. So for the first half of the event, we'll have our initial open mic readers, and then we'll have our wonderful feature, Nihal Mubarak, read in the middle of the event, and then we'll close out with the remainder of our open mic readers. And all of our open mic readers will have about 4 minutes to share. And I'll be posting the actual lineup in the chat in just a moment, and I'll read the names of each reader beforehand. If for some reason someone isn't in the room when I call them, but they join later, we'll make sure they get in the lineup. And with that, I would like to pass off the mic to our first reader, James Cagney. Welcome, James.
Thank you for that, Nia. Yeah, it's good to see you again. It's good to see you again. Much love to everybody else out there in the on MoAD's open mic list. I wanted to do a poem for Marian Anderson, who was an opera singer vocalist in the bulk of the 20th century. This is me listening to Marian Anderson sing "Go Down Moses," recorded in 1937. The vinyl noise floor of a 78 filling the ether. Sound of a singed red curtain opening before an audience of ghosts. A pianist primes the air of an imagined drawing room. All these years hearing this song launched by bass throat cannons, Robeson digging the lyrics for oil. To hear it aloft, ribbon of silk cast through her voice, symphonic and vowel elegant. Listen to the sonic architecture as she spires up onto her toes on the name Moses, her mouth a begging bowl of blood. The power lines of her voice nearly snapping before collapsing on the fainting couch of the word Pharaoh. Singing, she engages her entire body, a sequoia siphoning sound up from the earth's core, converging lyric with private gospel into a shower of sparks from her throat. The pianist sprints through their solo. Get back to the story they seem to play. Marion's voice obliges, igniting. The piano ascends, cascades, unable to find any melody to support the skills of the vocalist, who attempts, with her voice, to spin the sun on its axis like a dime. The pianist races the scale exasperated, their fingers dissolving before returning us to the warm hail of crackling vinyl, the sound like a star field of bubbles in a flute of champagne. All right, thank you very, very much for that.
Wow, thank you, James. That was a lovely way to start us off. Thank you. Next up, I'd like to invite Sylvia Blalock. Welcome back, Sylvia.
Hi, it's great to be back. Thank you very much for the venue. I'm going to do 2 short pieces. This is Stand By You. I wish I could wash your hair in Oshun's clear rivers, the feel of water running over a mind made feverish with vision as the drums prepare to sound. Your eyes seek days past while your mind and time march on. Marching is the furthest from the heart pumping in impatience. The time is nigh, the burning light. I wish there was music that signaled rest. So long out of your own programming, you have forgotten those first moments, disconnected from the American dream. Words pour from your lips like water from the Nile, rich in nutrients I didn't know I needed until they healed me. The human veil you coyly wear gives in to self-reflection, and you cry out in voice of pain it feels, felt, will feel. Given a moment to speak out, you defend the human experience that has played vehicle to your spiritual being. I see the familiar markings of that darkest night of the soul. A portal once passed through leaves a seed of longing to never wake again. I wish I could cool you as a daughter paying tribute, as a sister laying healing, as a student, as a friend, and cool your mind so that you too hear it. Your path still lays before you, queen, mother, daughter, sister. Finding a skein, start your piece anew. There is work yet to do. Rites of passage do not yet exist for the work ahead. There is so much to be done and still some that must be you. I call to your own knowing. I wait your words. And that is that piece. And this is We the Griot. Sorry, y'all. Spell weavers, shakers of the bones, incessant scratching of pen to paper, furious clacking of 2 fingers or all on battered keys, the letters worn bare, breathing magic into talking books where our words are brought to life and our minds never sleep. Words born on dreams and nightmares and visions and third eye vision, breathing life into truth, manifestations of thought, complex thought made bite-sized consciousness given a hue. Undulating pens bringing rivers from arid sand, fortifying voices, growing up children into armed women and men. Our minds never sleep. Whispers in the dark brought into stark light, a gentle nudge coaxes thought to walk this way. Minds that never sleep, torments often not our own torments cleverly disguised as prose, gut punching our own pain, ripping out and offering up our own bleeding hearts for one more try. And our minds, they never sleep. We the griot, weave a world connected and to each other, connected evermore. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Wow, I love those pieces. I love that title of the second one too. That was great. Next up, I would like to invite Naya Ryan. Welcome up.
Hello, everybody. This piece that I wrote is called Waves. And when I wrote it, I was going through it, really going through it. And so I felt kind of like life was taking me like a wave, and I had forgotten who I was. Waves. This wave came to me in a dream, rippling forth like tides of my own heart. The wave waved to me, smiled because it remembered my name. I blushed, I was so flattered this wave remembered me. For whom was I to be remembered by a wave so mighty, how it forced itself beyond the sand and cold, how beautiful. Was God in this wave, careening up on the shore with soft, whooshing noises, rolling back with heavy, wishing noise. Let me be the sand that wave treads on. Let me please hold up the ocean so that if it ever loses a drop, I'll catch it. I'll bring it back to it. But not before I marvel at the clear crystal drop matched with the sky like earrings. One day I forgot I was the ocean because the wave was so pretty and so mighty. How did I get lost on the waves? Thank you.
Wow, that was absolutely beautiful. And I just felt so meditative listening to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up to the mic, I'd like to invite Normatics. Welcome, Norm.
Hi, good evening. Wow, those pieces ahead of me are beautiful. And just like you said, they're very, very meditative. This is new for this week because of the weather that we've had. And then I got another piece. Slush is a trigger for 12-year-old me. Alls I can think how it got to salty, grimy, water-soaked quicksand marshes hidden under crosswalk corners. From where it fell, the sky womb, birthed from frozen winds mixing with water layered in clouds, cirrus to cumulonimbus, shaving ice crystals into snow tabula rasa, buffeted to smithereens by updraft artists that breathe in snowflake geometry, patterns that spin sculptures out of the sky, echoes of primal hexagon, thinking frosty snowmen can see out of cold briquette eyes. Bear caves and igloos are works of architecture. There, where it landed, layers upon layers, pristine, untread upon for hours, then shoveled to the curb between cars plowed under by diesel-fed horses, spraying salty crystals marking the streets like territory to be cleared. Life works at art. This other piece. How one can sustain peace. Reasons to change. Less faith in mind, more faith in chaos. Faith in life. Life is air in a breeze. No force, no direction to change. Spaces filled with whispers offer refuge from noise. Mind fills to capacity. Impatient waits on patience to go with the flow. Life is air in a hurricane. A force has direction, fills space, no refuge to shelter, to wait life out. Resist its flow at your own peril. Mind tells us we are drowning if we hold our breath too long in the dark, eyes open to a deserted oasis. Mind tells us, demands we choose the right direction to keep up, be left behind. Life has all directions to move forward, like every instant a big bang. Life has no place to go in a hurry. Doesn't have to ask for space to make a reservation. Life doesn't follow a roadmap or a path to chart with a blue star marking a destination. Life doesn't demand order or ask for a sequence of events for anyone to arrive at a better understanding. Now is frozen in time, where there is only heat from friction, moment after moment, trying to squeeze through creases in time, passing through invisible barriers, permeated by leaky logic, the kind that makes sense because it has to, when all it is chaos, called by its true name. Peace.
Thank you, Norm, for both of those pieces. I always love hearing the new pieces that you bring to this, and I think what you just spoke to of chaos as the new norm feels very poignant right now. Thank you. Next up, I would like to invite Sarai Bordeaux. Welcome, Sarai.
Hi, everybody. I'm gonna try to read two poems. The first one is from this anthology, whoop whoop, that Nomadic Press put out with the writing group, that one of the writing groups I participate in. So you can go to Nomadic Press to try to get it. This is Clarity. We are what perfection wishes it could be. Free, rough around the edges, wild in the eyes. We are not just our ancestors' dreams, their most vivid and lucid distillations, their reflexes, the hairs that stood up on their arms, their deepest breaths, their belly laughs. We are a part of them as they are a part of us, shimmering together. We are magic. When we remember our joy, we are powerful. When we know our story, we are golden, deep, unending, like our skin in the sun. We are the waters, troubled and troubling, resisting. Still we ride this wave, break open like seeds that extend roots into the dirt that still contains the blood stolen from us. The soil made so rich with that blood, it holds every instance, every universe, everything perfection wishes it could be. And I have this second one that I'm just barely on the first draft of it. The house across the way from my parents is painted black right now. This fact opens me up to a number of things. One, I love that this house is painted black. I'm not sure why it's painted black, but trims and doors are black, tripling down on black, holding black space, self, family, community, reminding me of what Black has built, that we haven't built this Black overnight, that Black is the past and the future, and now circling into one another, creating teachable moments, learnable moments where we learn that we are both teacher and learner, working towards the clarity that our Black houses stand sacred. that we carry them with us, whether broken into or on another road. Our homes are what needs rebuilding now. Not just like the one painted Black across the street, but the ones inside us, our first temples. This can be a cleansing right now if we work on letting it. 2, Black absorbs, and still it shines in the light. That it's okay for Black to be in the light, in every light. That light of our past, even if there was intention to stub us out, got us here till now. Our Black is every single thing there is, capable of the greatest enveloping there is. No wonder Black is night. No wonder the stars chose darkness to shine with. Only our Black can hold them. Such stars are loved ones in another form, seemingly quiet according to those who refuse to listen. Absorption whispers. It dances with you if you let it. If you allow your process to begin or continue or end if need be, in trust, in Black trust, we are meant to absorb this light. 3, all this Black attracts attention. Vilified for this attention when we call it to ourselves, when we demand it, make room for it. Also, though, criminalized when we ask for none at all, when we don't take the attention given, can't decide whether to call our behavior attention seeking. They can't decide whether to call our behavior attention seeking or seeking the wrong attention, just in general making noise that is logical like a seam ripper. When we are protesting, when we are working, living, existing, trying to exist, not wanting to exist here under these conditions. It is said that we unravel ourselves, degrade ourselves, did this to ourselves in this way. The justice system pays no attention until election time, when our attention literally saves lives. I can't get over the fact that the house across the way is painted Black. In my head, it's Black for the revolution that is coming, at least in our heads, at least in my head. I'm gonna internalize that this house across the way was painted Black for me, just for me, as a reminder that our history is also ongoing, unending, that it includes me for no reason other than that Blackness thought to include me. How lucky I am. We are for this Black house, for these Black houses that refuse to fall. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Wow, incredible. I'm kind of lost for words because every time you impress me with the new pieces you bring, Sarai, you say, oh, I just wrote this right before, and then it's this incredible poem. So I'm so excited to see how this poem perhaps evolves, but this is an excellent first draft. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Next up to the mic, I would like to invite S.K. Williams. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Happy Black History Month to everybody. And I'm gonna read a piece about Urumai. Urumai is I'm a Garifuna. I'm from Belize. I live in California now, but from Belize originally. And Urumai is our name for St. Vincent, where we were exiled from into Central America in the late 18th century. So we think about, Garifuna people face the east, where Urumai is all the time. That's where we believe we will go after we die, and so on. So this piece is called Urumai, and it's spelled Yurumein, and there is a lot that I name after it. It's my homeland, and we do a lot of travels and pilgrimages back to St. Vincent Island. Urumai, our midway between Africa and our new world, our intermediate homeland, a place where our hybrid memories began, a place of mixing, the joining of the African and the Arawak, the African and the Carib. Kalipuna, they called us. We became Garifuna. Deep in the forest jungles, high up in the mountains, above the clouds, away from our captors. Welcomed by the indigenous, who shared their languages with us because we'd come from different places and did not have a common one. They shared their cultures, their foods, their music, and their love, and we were formed and blossomed into a new people, fierce and proud, Garifuna, and you were our new home, far away from our own. Our new home until we were once again cast out and left adrift to die. But we lived and recreated ourselves again, a new people in another new land, with a new language and a different culture, but with you still in our blood. You will be forever in our bones and in our hearts until one day we can go home again. Urumai, it means the beauty of the rainbows in the valleys. We will return with renewed hope and love for the land and the people where the bones of our ancestors lie. That's the first one. My second poem is, I think the last time I was here, I talked about how I've been estranged from my daughter, and so I've been writing about her a lot and writing poems to her a lot. And her name is Troy, so I put her name out there. This one is for you, Troy. This poem is called Lágrimas, and it means tears. Por mi niña por siempre, for my little girl forever. When I carried you deep inside of me, it was you and me nestled one into the other, like so many Matryoshka dolls. And our hearts were synchronized, without missing a beat. We hungered for the same things and experienced the same cravings, olives or oranges, and the rising and the setting of the sun. And the tides affected our moods like the moon. But we did not always sleep on the same cycle. You became my internal alarm, rousing me from my frenzied slumbers, in which I dreamt of meeting you on the plane of you, becoming you. And you grew inside of me, and we grew together as one person, until you emerged and became a separate you. Even then our hearts beat together, and I could not differentiate your hunger from my own, as I hungered for you. And I could not contemplate our separateness without deep injury to my heart. And you grew even still and away from me, without cognizance of my desperation for reconnection. Then you were taken, out of my nest and further from my being, but never away from my heart, and even more deeply embedded in my soul. And still, I know that I am you, and you are me, as we always were. And I sit and contemplate the many aspects of you that I do not know, prevented from knowing, and wait for our reunion of you coming back to me, filling my heart again. And that's for Troy. My last poem is a sort of a love poem. I don't write very many of them, but this piece was written in 2019. It's called Stay. Sometimes the words get stuck in my throat, held there by pride, or to protect my soul from all of the pain that would come from your leaving. That one little word got stuck that day, as much as I wanted to say, stay, and let me love you in my own way. Stay, so that together we could make memories and perhaps a life together in this cold, cold world, where I could bring you warmth and an open face and heart, and cradle your soul when things inside of you were broken, by life, by love, by the world. Stay, but I did not say. And instead, I watched you walk away, knowing that you waited for me to ask, but I didn't ask, because either I didn't want to be a burden to you or to lose my pride for begging you to stay. So I said nothing instead, and you walked out of the door with my heart in the palm of your hand, and a head full of tears, and with my head full of tears for wanting you, with the words to ask you stuck in my throat, and my heart in my hand. Stay for the beautiful music that we had made together. Stay for the light that we'd shone into each other's lives. Stay for the bottomless passion that I have for you. Stay for the poetry you've left in my soul, and the longing that I have for you that will not go away, as you have, into the unknown ether to an unknown love, leaving me behind, when you knew my love and I knew yours. But you've gone because I let you wait in my pride and my fear that might consume me if I'd given you that tiny four-letter word that would have changed our lives forever. And let me love you the way that I can love you, with all my heart, with all my power, and with all my soul. Stay. I wish I had asked. I wish I knew how. And that's the end.
Thank you so much for all of those pieces. They all touched me in different ways. So thank you for sharing your story. And I really appreciate each time you bring us such a wealth of knowledge and history as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to share a couple poems and then invite up our featured poet for this evening. So both of these I think I've read in this space before, but I feel like a lot of the poetry tonight is, you know, calling on family or ancestors. And so both of these poems speak to that. This first one is entitled Motherland. Maybe this restless nature comes from my divided heritage, the state of not having one single place to call my motherland. Instead, my motherlands called to me in their different tongues, languages foreign to me, dialects lost in translation, lost in transatlantic waters, left behind on the islands across the Pacific, with relatives I may never know, motherlands I've yet to return home to. And this next piece is a little bit longer, and it's one that I have to thank my family for. These are their words that I am just the vessel for. I had the wonderful honor to basically have a conversation and interview my mom and her sisters who've all grown up here in the Bay Area from the 30s onward. And collectively, they all have so much living history that I'm so proud to share in. And so these words that I'm about to share are all fragments from our conversation, recrafted into this poem, which is entitled The Retelling. You have to be American, citizen, obey, obey, obey. It was hard work. We just got used to it. You had to hold your tongue half the time. You couldn't talk back, but you couldn't make faces either. Before Rosa Parks, my grandmother refused. She was a fighter. I think that's why I like water. He was a self-employed fisherman. Mama was a stay-at-home mom. He was 12 years older than her. She was a housewife. That's what women did at the time. Where does your name come from? The Great Migration. Our godparents were Filipino or mixed couples. I wanted him to teach me Tagalog. They would all speak the language. In those days, they expected Black people to, get out in the gutter. No matter where we go in a big group, they don't like us. She left Arkansas, threatened by white people, got on a train, didn't know where she was gonna go, and it ended up in Oakland. Grandma was kind of fearless, trailblazer. Our father was very quiet. He worked his way over, always bringing home fresh fish. It was something he really loved, the endless horizon, being out on the water. We were living in a matriarchy, born in Oakland, 3 generations in the house. We had Southern breakfasts, and there would always be something cooking. She used to make stuff in the bathtub, and the police would come and look. See, she was a bootlegger. I wasn't supposed to know I was wearing hand-me-downs. People saw that I looked different. When we were little, we were Negro. They presumed you had an attitude because you had that, quote, good hair. But we didn't make waves. We were nice girls, used to run in a trio. We used to ride up to the library. Maybe that was before the war. It's a church now. You had decorated your bicycle with crepe paper through the spokes. Remember playing hide and seek at night when the big trains would go by and the house would shake. I dream in the streets. The world is really different than when we were growing up. You just want to stop the car and walk the streets again. Mama never drove. She would carry me into the movies to save 14 cents. Those were the days. The baby's 76 years old now. I went back to school to become independent on my own. We all went to college, set the standard. First Black person in the whole organization, first Black middle management person. Oh, that's right. Equal employment plans for progress. And yet you still can't tell us apart. We did a lot of holding back, holding your tongue. I used to iron sheets when I first got married, ironing things that don't need to be ironed. Standing at that ironing board thinking, is this all my life's gonna be about? I got to be independent when I moved away from home. That's when Martin Luther King was shot. They had riots in Washington. If we take you to jail again, what do you want to be called? Black or Negro? I'm an American, Afro-Asian. You're having me deny my father. We embrace ourselves. We don't try to enhance where we are now. This is how it's supposed to be. The other strength we have is humor. I remember being asked by people where your name came from. It's really nobody's business. What are you? We are what we are, resplendent. It wasn't funny, but we laughed. Humor helps you get through a lot. Thank you. And thank you to some of the people in this very room whose words these are. I really appreciate my mom and her sisters who consistently show up for these open mics and support. So thank you. This poem is for all of you. And with that, I would like to introduce our feature for this evening. We have the wonderful Nihal Mubarak. Nihal is a Sudanese-American poet, fiction and nonfiction writer whose work centers themes of home and the African diaspora. She's inspired by writers such as Jhumpa Lahiri, Yaa Gyasi, Leslie Nneka Arimah, and Nihal's fiction and poetry has been published or is forthcoming in Solidago, the Gordian Review, Copper Nickel, Mizna, Arkana, and elsewhere. She teaches college writing and creative writing workshops and holds an MFA from Emerson College. Welcome, Nihal.
Hello, thank you, Nia. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and to all the poets who have already performed. I always love this space, and I told Nia before the call that, this has been long overdue for me. I need some poetry right now, so thank you guys for holding this space and for listening. So, like Nia said, I'm from Sudan, and a lot of my poetry centers on Sudan, on our culture. I also tend to write a lot about mother-daughter relationships and mothering in general, and writing toward home. I think we're all here kind of familiar with this idea of home and grappling with the idea of home, especially if we're, a part of the diaspora. So I hope you'll enjoy these poems. And I'll try to kind of give a little bit of commentary between them. This first one is called Homecoming, naturally, and it's a newer poem. I spent a month at home with my family. I hadn't seen them in a year and a half, and that was very much needed. So, Homecoming. I am in my mother's arms for the first time in a year, and it feels like consent to exhale. We go through the motions. Mama says I gained weight. I say I know, I'm fine with it. She feeds me despite her judgment, makes all my favorite foods without preamble. We sit over chai and biscuits in the mornings before my sisters wake and thunder down the stairs. Mama doesn't ask, but her eyes have questions. The word for womb in Arabic shares a root with the word for divine mercy, which is the same as divine love. Mama doesn't ask, but I know she wonders about wombs and wounds and when. My mother's love borrows from the divine. She forgives before asking what I have done wrong. I imagine her as a grandmother before I see myself mothering. My love is not divine or even human. I find it hard to have mercy without also thinking of what mercy requires. This next poem is called Border Speak. I also write a lot about language and kind of being, on the fence between two different cultures, two different languages, and having to kind of define that. So this was a poem kind of playing with the idea of language. Border Speak. I know my tongue well, spent years training it, though sometimes it bends to its own will. Sometimes my tongue betrays me, clings to many histories. In the airport, the woman at the counter says, "Have a safe flight." I want to say thank you, but inshallah tumbles out instead. My tongue is strong, resilient, holds onto Arabic, its first love, before English was a colonizing force, before the muscle atrophied, became withered, ugly, twisting to make room for consonants when it favored vowels. My tongue refuses to forget, pulls from a word bank belonging to my ancestors, copies my mother, and forms the sounds for words I can't use. Mouth or borderland, no barbed wire fences here, just a sharp tongue, stiff. This next one was written after my return to Saudi Arabia, which is where I was born, in 2015. And there are two types of pilgrimages in Islam. There's a small pilgrimage that you make, the Umrah, which can be done at any time, and then the Hajj, which is only once a year. So this was a small pilgrimage that we had done, which I hadn't done since I was a toddler. And so this was my kind of experience returning to that. Many small pilgrimages. In Jeddah, we made many small pilgrimages. I told my father I remembered everything, as if we'd never left, as if we hadn't become new people. We walked along the shore and the Red Sea was almost the same, like it was still 1997, but the beach was lined with restaurants and the house I grew up in was empty. Both my grandparents now with God, and the cracked wall, the dead trees were the proof. In Mecca, I experienced a revival, recalled the way my father used to carry me as he ran between two hills. I walked on cold tiles with bare feet beside my mother, repeating her supplications. We both drank Zamzam in small sips, savoring. My mother took each step for her father, and I wanted to take back my intention, wished I had told God that this Umrah was for everyone I ever loved and not for me. And then shifting a little bit, this is a poem called Bride Doll, which is kind of a commentary on Sudanese culture and how much weight and how much importance is placed on marriage and weddings for women especially. And how that kind of can be sometimes the pressure of that can kind of be a little harmful. Bride doll. In Sudan, the women call a new bride until she gives birth. So I have been newlywed for years. My mother is embarrassed and stops speaking to her sisters so she doesn't have to answer questions. I call relatives and endure the word arusa, meaning bride, but also doll, which is fitting because I am fashioned and formed against my will. A woman is called bride, then mother, the name her parents gifted her, discarded, dead, along with her girlhood. They forget she was once a child, but even then, owned, her father's daughter, her mother's burden, tethered to anything but herself. Unearthing. I often think about all the ways I've disappointed my father. I recall the time he called me something both of us wished he could swallow back into his chest. I think about how I love him as my father, but also as the first man who told me I was worth something. The Arabs used to bury their daughters alive. I ask myself sometimes if the hatred I feel for my body is a way of wanting those girls to replace me, to take back the earth that smothered them. The last thing they saw was their fathers lowering their infant bodies into the ground. I wonder if that's the real reason nothing grows in the desert. I wonder if my father would have buried me if he'd had the chance. A little morbid, sorry about that. But I also read a lot about bodies, about my body specifically, especially after I got married. I was like more fascinated just with the idea of bodies and what bodies can do and what they refuse to do. And this next poem speaks to that. It's called Ode to Making Milk Tea, and it's after Ross Gay. No one asks me to do it, but my mother's judgment is loud, and by now I have grown to love adding a spoonful of loose-leaf tea to a pot of boiling water, watching as it turns red. It is second nature. I toss in cinnamon sticks, add milk, then let the tea simmer, while I dress and wait for visitors who will not drink. I wonder if I will ever make anything as good as a cup of tea, if my body is willing to become a sanctuary, like cardamom pods protect their seeds, or silk cotton bags hold fine tea leaves. Except my body has never protected much, though it rejects plenty. It is said that the Chinese Emperor Shennong discovered tea when he sat under a camellia, an evergreen with yellow-white buds, and the leaves blew into his pot of boiling water. I am also hoping to make an accidental discovery. I want to wander until I transform and my body says, here is an offering. Maybe I'll go to the desert. In Phoenix, the palm trees bear fruit. I'll sit under one and hope, or maybe I'll be content interpreting dreams in which I give birth to a child with no face, whose screams wake me from slumber. This next poem is not titled, but it is a pantoum. Again, same or similar themes of mothering and motherhood and mothers in general. My mother compares me to her youngest sister on the days I tell her that she's wrong. We stand across from each other, the kitchen island, a blockade. We are each leading our own war. On the days I tell her that she's wrong, my mother retreats into herself, becomes stiff. We are each leading our own war. She tells me she prays for a daughter who is not me. My mother retreats into herself, becomes stiff. For days we dance on the edges of imagined borders. She tells me she prays for a daughter who is not me. My anger is really just sadness without permission. For days we dance on the edges of imagined borders. I vow to love her, then vow not to make vows. My anger is really just sadness without permission. We return to each other like turtles find their home shore. I vow to love her, then vow not to make vows. Resign myself to the knowledge that my mother is mine. We return to each other like turtles find their home shore. My mother compares me to her youngest sister. I feel like all of these are really heavy. I'm sorry, y'all. But I just have a thing against writing happy poetry. It doesn't happen often. It's interesting that that's a pantoum, and I was so resistant for a long time to the idea of forms because I didn't think that there was space for writers of color when it came to like structure and forms of poetry. And so for a long time, I just wanted to write free verse. But I'm now kind of, reading more poets, contemporary poets who do form really well. I've been kind of trying to give it a shot. And I'm really like for the idea of, using poetry and writing in general as resistance and taking what already exists and making it your own, especially when you're part of a marginalized community. So I also believe in mimicking and copying the poets that you really love. This next one is called Corpse, and it's after Tarfia Faizula's 100 Bells, which is a gorgeous poem. My body made demands. I let it. It wanted to eat. I fed it. I felt its largeness. The fat became an archive, the archive a memory I was stuck in. My body was a corpse. It died in stages. The signs were in my brittle fingernails, skin like scales on legs that refused to walk. My mother called me fat. My hair fell out. I cried in the shower. My body came back to life. It wanted to eat. I refused. I didn't. My father looked at me and called me fat. I didn't care. I did care. My father said, "You shouldn't eat so much because it will kill you." I said, "I am already dead. My body is a corpse." I threw up in the bathroom. It wasn't on purpose. It was. I cooked a meal to feed my parents. I did not eat. My mother insisted. I said I was not hungry even though I was. I wanted to prove a point. I wanted to be more than a corpse. It was winter in Texas and raining. I wore clothes to cover my corpse. My body is a snake. I coil. Snakes die with dignity. They curl into themselves and are still. My body is still. This next one is short. It's called Medicine, also another recent one that I wrote after going home. No one in my family believes in anxiety or depression. My sister complains of a tightening in her chest. Our mother feeds her a spoonful of honey and black seeds. I'm reminded of the way she used to whisper verses from the Quran, tracing the letter Noon into our skin for protection, or when she took us to the doctor and ordered the prescription only to leave it in the fridge, forgotten. All the doctors had nothing to offer except kalam faldi, empty talk. My doctor husband laughs when I tell him about the fenugreek seeds and the honey, and I am not sure whether I should laugh or tell him that I keep black seeds in a knotted sachet in our closet, just in case my mother is right. This next one is a prose poem, also untitled. It is 2012, the year they said the world would end. My father goes to Iraq, not to fight, to translate for the people who do. My mother panics, and this makes us panic. At the airport, we are dressed like mourners. We refuse to let go. My father leaves. My mother has nightmares. She sees my father dying. I sleep on the floor next to her bed. She hides a knife under the pillow. My sisters cry. My mother cries. I hold my tears back, not out of strength, but stubbornness. We take a taxi to school even though we can't afford it. But my mother can't drive. Neither can I. My father finally calls. He says he's depending on me. He says he won't be back anytime soon. I learned to parallel park behind the Walgreens. Secretly, I pray I don't pass the test so he will be forced to come back. I do. He doesn't. I drive my brother and sisters to school, my mother to work. There are fewer people in our apartment, but somehow it seems smaller. We have no tolerance for each other. At night, I want to scream until the skin comes loose from my throat, but my father is depending on me. I perfect pretending. My mother blames me for my father's leaving. Months pass. Just when we think he will not call again, my father does and tells us not to worry. He asks us how it's going, like he's not in Iraq and we are not worried he will die. We smile and say everything is great. Everything is not great. My mother's fear makes us nervous. She keeps saying my father will not come back for us. I learn not to contradict her. My father is depending on me. I sleep on the floor to keep my mother from having nightmares. She has them anyway. She hides a knife and a hammer under my father's pillow. I want to take the knife and slice at my mother's fear until she makes sense again. I want to take the hammer and fashion a door in the wall that will lead me to my father so I can ask him to explain himself. I am young and stupid. I don't yet understand the meaning of sacrifice. All right, I'll see if I have time for two, but this one is also untitled. I'm really bad at titles. And I wrote this just yesterday, so it's very new. I fail each time I try to keep a plant alive. Yes, even the desert ones. I want to believe this is a metaphor for something. My sister's plants thrive, and this makes the metaphor deeper somehow, though I don't know in what way. I do know this. Anything that blooms is defiant. There are preconditions for growth. When my mother warns me not to lift heavy things or walk long distances in heels, I know what she really means. I lie on the floor and ask my sister to sit on my aching back, and Mama protests loudly. Haven't I told you, she says. Haven't I said girls should be careful? But I am not a girl. I am a woman, and she is making a point. She doesn't know or pretends not to know that there are preconditions for growth. In her bedroom, after everyone is asleep, I ask again about the miscarriages. My mother recounts them like she is remembering a recipe that wasn't written down. She details the losses by way of her own mistakes. When I say to be careful, she tells me it is because I wasn't. I think about anatomy, the wiring of my mother's body in relation to my own. I think about how my siblings and I were defiant because we did not die like the others. Mama buys anise seeds and shows me how to soak them in hot water before drinking, how to crunch 7 fenugreek seeds between my teeth first thing in the morning. I don't comment on the use of seeds, considering why she makes me take them. I don't think about how this is another metaphor, only this time in plain sight. I want to say it is not as simple as seeds. Not everything with a seed in it blooms. Sometimes there are preconditions that won't allow for growth. Okay, I have 1 minute. This one's very short, so I think I'm good. This one's just called 2020. The year we thought couldn't or wouldn't end has ended, and we are left wondering what happens now to time, what happens to us in the spaces between moments lost before gaining others. It is not the year that held all the things we wished would pass by without touching us. A year is only days, and days end. A year has no say in how or when or if it will come and go. The year we thought couldn't or wouldn't end was a passage of days that have now ended, and we are also a passage of days, and we have no say in the matter anyhow. Thank you all very much.
Oh, thank you, Nihal, for all of those poems. I remember the very first time that you read at open mic, just hearing the one poem you shared absolutely blew me away. And tonight was no different. This was absolutely incredible getting to hear your words. I would love if you're able to either share verbally or in the chat, if there's ways people can read more of your work or support you in any way. I know folks will want to continue to do that after this call. Thank you again so much for sharing. So we're going to close our second half with the remainder of our open mic readers. So I would like to invite up actually one of our former features in a family connection here, Eltinaé. Welcome.
Hey Nia, how are you? It's great to see you again.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying up late and joining us again.
Thank you. Actually, we've been having earthquakes here in Grenada, which is something kind of strange. So it's been a little mental over here.
Wow, hopefully you're staying safe.
Yeah, things are okay so far, but January has been special. First of all, I just want to say I've been blown away by Nihal's verses. Very beautiful work, Nihal. I'm so proud of you. All of the poets tonight were exceptional, but Nihal, obviously being family as well. It's been amazing to watch her grow, and it's really great to hear her tonight. I'm gonna read one poem that is something I've written. I haven't been doing a lot of writing, and it's kind of a weird one for me because it's not really in my typical style, but I'm trying to kind of break away and try different stuff. And it's called Miss Call. Call Miss from the balcony. Pretend you've lost your cat. Ugly cry on a terrace until someone asks if you're okay. Talk frankly about the things you miss. Name them. Sip dramatically. Ask, do you believe people have a calling? Talk openly about your struggles with time, past lives, alternative drugs, about what to do if you miss your flight, your old flat, the way you picked up anyone, how you missed their name the night before. Find yourself saving numbers randomly, calling after lunch on the sofa, angrily leaving Insta poetry voicemails until someone calls, wakes you up, tells you they found your cat, how sorry they missed your call, how fast they will come over, lay beside you, call you anything you want. And that's it.
Great, thank you so much. It's always a joy to get to hear your poetry, and thank you for bringing this new piece into this space for all of us to hear.
Thank you, Nia. It's great.
Next up, I would like to invite Menet Allah. Welcome.
Thank you. Minat, but it's okay. It's all good.
Sorry about that.
No, not at all. With Nia's permission, I'll share my screen. It's kind of like my poetry tends to be very corporative of other languages as well. So I hope this helps readers in following along. This first one, Untitled. Yeah, just making sure that I'm not on mute. To witness the ink, the reed, the papyrus. Sorry. To witness the ink, the reed, and the papyrus which spills from the reed. To witness Ra when he enlivens in the dawn when it rises on the valley. To witness Khonsu when she waxes in the moonrise, when it chants to fertile river. Dates and honeyed Camomilla, the goose girl, sunken and sullen. Binti, speak from whence you came. It smells of corn and citrus, the cloud like cotton. From them fell rice onto flooding silver banks. Praise to Nephthys, to Osiris. Split the sky open, found it full of husks, of sand, pounds, and carbon. So much carbon. What medicine? Cumin and fig, frog and salt. A pharaoh chanced he be when oyster became almost pearl, and man almost man. Then, when the earth is shaken to its utmost convulsion, and the earth throws up its burdens from within, and man cries distressed, what is the matter with it? Ask once more, what then? When mankind was born from his eye, what did he see? What to witness form like unto this? The fall of man was fruit, so where was Eden's approval? And then for the Muslimin and Muslimat here, this is from Surah Al-Zilzal in the Quran. And then second one, Allow to Maran. Breeze, you who blow from the mountainside where my lover fights, what message are you bringing me? Afghan women writing poetry in secret, in hush-hush gatherings by riverbeds and banks, Godar, where girls gather water. A lende is a verse form. Lendai in Pashto means short, poisonous snake. Mar, or snake. Maran, or snakes. Snakes writing poetry in secret in hush-hush gatherings by riverbeds and banks. First rule in writing lendes as a snake by the river, you must bear no name. Give me the sweet drink of your lips as I am traveling and I will feel thirsty. Climb to the brow of the hill and sight where my darling's caravan will sleep tonight. A lende is a 2-line poem. Its opening line has 9 syllables. Its closing 13 and ends with one of 2 sounds, ma or na in Pashto. Lendes may be read, but true to their roots in oral traditions, they are sung. Embrace me in your suicide vest, but don't say I won't give you a kiss. Is there not one man here brave enough to see how my untouched thighs burn the trousers off me? Pashtun women call attention to the cowardice of men in matters of sex and war. Snakes gather water drops on the scales of their backs and drink and drink and drink. Snake bite, first aid, avoid panic, move victim out of danger and place at rest. Retain snake for identification if possible. Girls forbade to write have committed suicide. No, snakes cannot kill themselves with their own venom. They can, however, die from the injuries of the bite itself. Lendes belong to Afghan women, and since poetry and prostitution are seen one and the same for girls, snakes they stay by the river, where poetry is a private matter. May God make you into a riverbed flower so I may smell you when I gather water. Okay, thank you.
Wow, thank you for sharing both of those pieces. And it was really lovely getting to see them on the page as well. So I really appreciate you sharing in both ways. Thank you for being here. Next up to the mic, I'd like to invite Andrea Jacobo. Welcome back.
I just want to say thank you so much for the readers already, and I'm just still sitting with the beauty of your poem, Menet. Thank you so much for sharing that and those pieces of you. Thank you. So beautiful. I'm thrown off how beautiful it is because I'm like, okay, where's my poem? Because I don't even know where it is. Okay, let me just bring it. So, in honor of Black History Month, I want to share a piece of myself that I haven't been able to share as much. And I'm Dominican. And so there's this battle between our Blackness and being Dominican. So this poem is unfinished, but I wanted to share just these little pieces. I don't know how to call it yet, but I call it remembering. I need to take off my notifications. 4. I can remember how the walls looked at me when my mother said to me, "Red is not for your skin color." Then double down with, "La gente morena no le queda bien la pinta de labio rojo." Women with brown skin don't look good with red lipstick. It took me 16 years to wear red lipstick. In the small New York apartment bathroom on 96th and Hillside, the wooden squeaky door and the quickie wooden floors. This is where my mom, as a white woman, and I saw her different than me. But at the same time, I am her. I'm her fair skin, blue eyes, curly red hair, loud voice, just con poquito de colorcito, with a little bit of color. 6. People ask my mother, "Are your daughters adopted?" Claro. I would feel her answer with the same force of the day, and she gave light to each of her brown babies. 8. To me, I was white with a little color, melanin. I was able to tan easily. My mom and her sisters all had big as curly hair like my sisters. So the difference of our skin tones never surfaced my mind because we all knew how it felt to have our hair pulled back until every coil was flat. The song wrapped in the melody of Dominicanisms would surface every time a sound of pain would escape my mouth, as the rigid brush would pull back the hair gifted by my ancestors. Quien quiere pelo bonito, guanta jalones. Mixed with no te case con un negro. Tied with the oppressive bow, hay que refrenar la raza. These words, these songs, these rituals were brushed into my identity of being Dominicana, but not Black, like the soil in Puerto Plata. Y la tierra, ¿qué color tiene? Negra, just like me. So that was that one. I want to share the other parts, but it's still not edited, and I still have to add more. Thank you. The last one I'll share tonight. That was a lot for me to share. My heart is beating really fast, so let me take a breath. It's also Valentine's, so love is in the air. So this one I just wrote out of nowhere. I want to fall in love in Español, so I can love in the language of my parents and abuelos, the colonial paraíso of the new world, colonizado of the morena hues of colorismo. I want to fall in love in Español, to reach enlightenment in mi idioma de niñez, of my childhood, to set it free from the ideas of muchachas tu edad, girls your age, don't weigh, dress, speak, unless it's color-coded in the machismo, con una sonrisa del tumbao. Quiero fall in love in Español, to fill in the spaces where English can measure the depth of my love, drumming the hums of waves, saying, oye, I love you, in Spanglish. Thank you.
Thank you for both of those pieces. I love hearing your words and so excited to see where that new poem takes you, and hopefully you can bring us more next time as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure.
Next up to the mic, I would like to invite Elena Zuniga, a friend from a while back, and I'm so excited to have you here in this space.
Thank you, Nia. I'm really excited to be reading. I haven't really written or read any poems like for fun in like 9 years. So I'm going to read a couple pieces that I wrote with my job. We focus a lot on the teachings of Dr. King. And so we were recently reading the book called Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. And those are some of the, that's where some of this writing came from. So the first one is called A Gumbo of Values. A shift in our values will do everybody good. Compassion is needed at a higher temperature in order to thaw out our frozen souls. If we rid ourselves of some of the hatred, there will be more room for love to fit into the pot. Only so many ingredients can be in there at the same time. While you're making room for love, also leave some space for generosity and empathy and flat out human kindness. Take out war and poverty and violence and add trust and respect. Take out racial slurs, racial discrimination, institutionalized racism, derogatory names, white privilege, colonization, and slavery, while simultaneously adding equity, support, and resources where they are needed the most. When you stir the gumbo, make sure you blend all of the shades together so that none are separated like the red lining that's divided us for all of these years, while not moving the border of Mexico more south simply because you wanted to feel in control. This recipe has enough ingredients to feed the souls of all on planet Earth, because when it's running low, we will all continue to add love and patience with the United States to it, because it is the right thing to do. Thank you. And I have one more. This one is called Esperanza. And the assignment was for the students was to write on something that inspires hope right now during the time of coronavirus and poverty and all the things that are happening in the United States. So this is Esperanza. This country was built on the backs of slaves and the genocide of Native Americans. We cannot control the past, but we can control the future. This country benefits off the profits of items made in sweatshops and other countries and prisoners working for inhumane wages. Cents per hour. We cannot control the past, but we can control the future. This country allows for police officers to racially profile individuals of color, even kill them, and get away with it. We can't control the past, but isn't this our present situation? Although we may feel stuck at times when we reflect on the many issues we face as a country, we must know that change takes time. It took time for racism and white privilege to be created and developed, just as it will take time for us to break down these cancers that have become embedded in some people's way of thinking and being. Aunque tenemos un virus, coronavirus, que está afectando todo el mundo, tenemos que tener esperanza. Tenemos una vacuna que nos va a ayudar a ver el final de la pandemia. Eso es un signo de esperanza. Aunque tuvimos un presidente que nos atrasó mucho en términos del progreso que hicimos con Obama, como presidente, tengamos esperanza por este nuevo presidente. No olvidamos, let us not forget that cada día, cada minuto, every second that we don't fight for, work for equity and peace and love is a second that we will not get back. Luchamos por un mejor futuro para nuestros hijos y nuestros nietos. If we don't, no one will. If we get lazy, the next generation will be stagnant and think that it's okay to not struggle and that there's no work to be done. Keep the momentum going. Es ahora or nunca. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. And it's so wonderful to see you and have you share these important reminders for us. Thank you so much. Next up, I would like to invite Shauna Sherman, who will be closing us out this evening. Welcome, Shauna.
Hello, everybody. So great to be here. I'm just soaking it all in. And Elena, yes, totally agree. Thank you. I'm going to read I just have one poem today, and it's based on it's a persona poem based on a character in a book from the 1930s, and there are a couple movies afterwards. I don't want to give too much away because there's lots of hints in the poem, and also inspired by Sally Wen Mao and her use of persona poem and a lot of details. Called Viola Scylla Johnston visits Hearst Castle and meets Julia Morgan. I'm in my Chevrolet. I drive up Hearst Castle Road. After an anaphractious ride up the hill, I'm at the top. The castle behind me, behind it blue, I sit to calm my upset stomach. Statue of Sekhmet sun circle behind her head. The fountain gurgles. It's all a flash of light, and I have a hard time seeing the horizon from this high. The butler guides me to Casa del Monte. I dip my modish hat and lay on a divan, stare at the cast plaster ceiling, dazzling 22-karat gold. Seal, eucalyptus leaf, palm trees, moldings play, and leaf shadows switch outside the window. My husband, the engineer, arrives at 7. Dinner at 8, Julia Morgan inquires into my profession. Have you even considered? Yes, librarian. I've made good there, 20,000 times good enough, because above all, we want to be liked. Time has allowed me to pass in silence. The engineer interjects the pre-rehearsed topic for conversation, home. In the morning, he will consult with Julia on a metal structure for a blue mosaic tiled natatorium. At a breakfast of pancakes and maple syrup, I stare at a triptych, the Virgin and Child with musical angels. Larson and Lorca, Hurston and Hurst, vanishing imitation of life in a bouquet of flowers, meadow of 1,000 blooms, yellow asphodel. I wear a brown crocheted bikini to sit at the edge of Neptune Pool, I recline like Olympia, use sunscreen to protect my alabaster skin. In the afternoon, we go riding. Julia veers us through a gap. Then we ponder the soul. I ask, does it have a color? I dare Julia to spot mine and avoid tipping on the barranca. At the castle, I look forward to reading from the unfamiliar volumes in the library. Bannon said, always be curious. Clothed in wings of silk, I open a leather-bound tale, inhale its words everlasting. Occasionally, I look out to the sea and miss my mother.
Thank you so much, Shauna. And I love all the pieces that you bring, all of the different persona poems. And it's wonderful to have you here this evening. And I want to thank all of our readers this evening as well. I feel like there was just a beautiful thread throughout everyone's poems and the stories that you were sharing. Definitely feeling uplifted hearing all of you. And I want to thank Nihal again for being such an incredible feature. It was so wonderful to hear more of your poetry. And I hope everyone will continue to support your work. And again, all the people who've shared, if you have any books that you're published in or anywhere that people can keep reading your work or engaging with your work, please do put that in the chat so people can support. It's a great network here, people who love to show up for each other. So I really appreciate that. As Elizabeth has said in the chat, our next open mic will be on February 18th. So the series happens every 2 weeks, so I invite you all to join us again. We will have Michael War as our feature. We also have Michael's book at MoAD, and he's been hugely involved with MoAD as well. So I really hope you all join us in supporting his feature. We also do appreciate your feedback. We do have a program survey that will be in the chat. So if you'll just take just a moment to fill that out and let us know how we can keep supporting you, the public. If you're able to financially support the museum, we do appreciate that. We've been doing extensive amounts of programming, and part of it is from the contributions that our public is making. So if you're able to donate, you can either do so through our website or by texting the number 56512 and typing the word MoAD SF, and that will take you directly to an easy way to donate. So again, thank you all for supporting, for showing up, for sharing, and for listening. And I hope to see you all again in 2 weeks. Take care.